When I saw it, I was petrified. Its size was enormous, and its face was filled with horrifying scars. It had pale, watery eyes that instilled both terror and disgust. I didn't know if I could bring myself to get close to it, but after reading its diary, I wanted to return it in person. It was unbelievable that it had survived, even though everyone had assumed it was dead. I hesitated for a moment, and then, a little fearfully, I approached the hut where he lived, which he described on one of the pages. Like him, I felt excluded for being a woman in that era. My family is one of the most prominent and affluent in Switzerland. I have 6 brothers, and I was the only woman. My fate was already designed from the moment I was born. I was supposed to marry someone from high society and dedicate myself to raising children because in the midst of the 18th century, that was the only thing expected of us. However, my plans were very different. Like my brothers, I hoped to attend university and become a great scientist. But every time I expressed my dream to my father, he said it was impossible. Besides, when has there ever been a woman scientist? Nevertheless, I decided to learn on my own from the vast collection of science, medicine, chemistry, and natural philosophy books that are in the enormous library of my house. During those days, I was reading about the possibility of reviving the dead. Most theories said it was not possible. However, there were scientists who advocated for this thesis. I remembered that charming family who lived near us, and how their fate was suddenly overshadowed by sadness. I was very young at the time, but my parents used to visit their house often, as they had formed a close friendship. Mr. Frankenstein was a judge, just like my father, and his sweet wife was very close friend with my mother. They had 4 children, 3 boys and a young woman. Their cousin, whom they treated like a sister. They were a very special and joyful family. However, their luck changed when Victor, their eldest son, chose to study sciences and experiment with bodies to create a sort of superhuman. As the story goes, he had brought to life a being using various organs, tissues, and bones he had stolen from the morgue while studying in Ingolstadt. But instead of a beautiful being, he gave birth to a monstrosity. That creature had been born good, but society's fear and rejection turned it into an evil being, whose sole purpose was to seek revenge on its creator by murdering his most beloved ones. He quickly got up from the bench where he was sitting and ran off. "Wait," I said with a trembling voice. He looked at me with great surprise upon realizing that I was addressing him. "Why aren't you running away like everyone else who sees me? Are you blind?" he asked, astonished. I approached slowly, watching his reactions, and when I was about a meter away from him, I showed him the journal. "It can't be. Where did you find it?" "In the Alps of Chamonix. I was walking, and suddenly, I saw it on the snow." The man grabbed it roughly and went into the hut. As he was about to close the door, I stopped him. "I apologize for intruding, but I read your diary, and your story truly moved me. I couldn't believe you were alive. It has been said both you and Victor Frankenstein had died. More than anyone, I know what it's like to be excluded by society. How dare you comparing yourself to me? You, a woman who has everything and doesn't suffer for her appearance," he exclaimed. "Believe it or not, I understand. I have been discriminated my whole life for being a woman." The man looked at me in astonishment as he heard what I was saying. "I've always dreamt of being a scientist, but I'm not allowed to attend university because of my gender. My desire to understand the origin of human beings and how they function is so strong that I have studied on my own, and believe me, I know quite a lot. However, no one would believe the discoveries I have made. When I read your journal, I realized that your creator was Victor Frankenstein, my neighbor. I didn't know him well, but our parents were friends. I heard about the tragic story of his family and how each one had been killed by a monster. But reading your diary made me realize that if I were in your shoes, I might have reacted in the same way. Feeling rejected because of my appearance, with no one caring to understand my true nature, I continued. His large eyes were looking at me with disbelief. "Get out of here," he shouted at me. "I understand, if I were you, I would also be suspicious of anyone. I just want you to listen carefully, as I have come to propose something that can change both your life and mine. As you already know, I have a deep love for science, and over the years, I've investigated what Victor Frankenstein did to you. I have all the necessary information to create the woman you pleaded for from your creator. I know it sounds crazy, but I want to help you. Humans cannot live in isolation. It was always your desire to have a woman like yourself, someone who would understand you and give you her love. I believe I can create her, if you're willing," I said. The monster looked at me in terror, brought his hands to my neck, and started squeezing with such force that I was almost choked. I have lived alone for so long that I've grown accustomed to my solitude. Besides, my father, as he called Victor, promised to make me a companion, but when he was close to finishing her, he regretted it and destroyed her. I was so hurt by his betrayal that I ended up taking everything he loved away, so he could experience the suffering he had caused me, he said. Don't worry. At least let me try. If I succeed, you'll have a partner to find happiness with, and I will achieve my dream of putting into practice everything I have learned. Perhaps in the future, my writings could become a legacy for humanity, I said. Then, I saw a tear falling from his face. And that's how I accomplished what Victor Frankenstein refused to complete. I worked for months in a shed at the house, and when I finished the female version of the monster, I managed to take her out without anyone seeing. I still wonder if it was worth it and if they are happy. Every time I walk through the Chamonix Valley, I look around with fear of seeing them. I just hope they have kept their promise to remain invisible.